All right, so the British Prime Minister has just touched down in India, and let me tell you, this isn't just some routine visit. This is the big one, the culmination of years of intense negotiations, all to kick off a massive new trade partnership. But almost immediately, as soon as the wheels hit the tarmac, this old ghost story starts making the rounds. You see it bubbling up everywhere. Is this a genuine historic partnership between two equal nations? Or is this the East India Company 2.0? It's a heavy question, so let's really dive in and unpack this. You can just feel the excitement coming from the UK on this one. It's palpable. The Prime Minister himself, speaking from the cockpit of his flight, basically shouted it from the rooftops. This is the biggest trade mission to India that the UK has ever sent. And he wasn't kidding. He brought over 100 of the UK's top business leaders with him. Okay, so to really get what's going on here, both the hype and the worry, we've got to rewind a little bit and look at why this deal became such a massive political priority for Britain in the first place. Yeah, it all circles back to 2020 and one word, Brexit. You know, after leaving the European Union, the UK was suddenly on its own. It was under this incredible pressure to prove to the world, and maybe more importantly to itself, that it could not only survive, but thrive by striking its own big, powerful trade deals. And in that global search, India became the ultimate prize. Now, this is where it gets really fascinating. Just look at the sheer political muscle that went into this. This wasn't just one government's project. We're talking 4 different prime ministers. Johnson, Truss, Sunak, they all staked their reputations on getting this done and couldn't quite seal it. It finally took Keir Starmer's government to drag it over the finish line after 14 grueling rounds of talks. That tells you everything. This wasn't just business. For a post-Brexit Britain, this was about political survival. All right, so now that we have the backstory, let's get into the nitty-gritty. Let's decode this thing. What's actually in this deal? First up, the big number. The headline figure here is just massive. The goal is to literally double the trade between the two countries, taking it from around $56 billion today to a whopping $112 billion by 2030. And this gives you a pretty good idea of what that trade is actually going to look like. You'll see a lot more of India's excellent textiles, footwear, and food products heading to the UK. And coming the other way? Well, Britain is banking on selling its famous goods like Scotch whisky and luxury cars to India's huge and growing market. So how are they going to double all that trade? Simple, they're slashing tariffs. And this is a really big deal for India. Get this, 99% of Indian goods can now enter the UK with zero tax. Zero. On the flip side, things coming into India are getting way cheaper too. I mean, just look at Scotch whisky. The tax on that was a jaw-dropping 150%. And luxury cars, a Rolls-Royce for instance, that's dropping from 100% all the way down to 10%. So for India, the wins here are pretty obvious, right? Indian goods become cheaper in the UK, which means exports are going to shoot up. That creates a ripple effect. More demand means more jobs in manufacturing, and it gives a huge leg up to small and medium businesses, think jewelry makers or leather workshops, giving them access to a major global market. It's all designed to fuel growth. Okay, but this brings us right back to that big looming question we started with. Is this all a bit one-sided? Is the UK getting the better end of it? Well, let's actually look at the numbers, because the reality today is a world away from the 17th century. For starters, you have to understand that India came to the negotiating table from a position of serious strength. Even before this new deal, India already had a trade surplus with the UK of over 85,000 crore rupees. That means India was already selling way more stuff to the UK than it was buying from them. And let's put this in perspective. The UK is an important partner, for sure, but it's not India's biggest, not by a long shot. The US, China, the UAE, they all do more trade with India. So India's economic fate doesn't hang on this one deal. Not even close. And another thing, India is no rookie when it comes to this stuff. This isn't their first rodeo. India has already hammered out free trade deals with huge economies like Japan, South Korea, Australia, and the whole ASEAN group of nations. Playing on the global trade stage is just what modern India does. So I think the real story here is that India didn't just show up and sign whatever was put in front of it. Far from it. This was a hard-fought, 4-year-long negotiation where India stood its ground to protect its own crucial interests. And here's the proof right here. This is a perfect example. To protect its millions of farmers and local producers, India basically drew a red line in the sand. Sensitive areas like dairy, apples, oats, and edible oils, they were kept completely out of the deal. They were a non-negotiable for India, and India got its way. So let's bring it all home. After looking at all of this, what's the final verdict? A partnership of equals or something else? Well, when you lay out all the evidence, the picture that emerges is pretty clear. This wasn't some colonial throwback. This was a thoroughly modern economic negotiation. It was driven by a UK that desperately needed a win. It was negotiated by an Indian government that is confident and economically powerful. And the end result? It seems to be a balanced deal with real benefits and, just as important, real protections for both countries. So no, this doesn't look like a return to the past. It looks like a deal for the future. And that leaves us with one final, much bigger question to think about. If this is what a new partnership between a former empire and its most powerful former colony looks like, what does that signal about where global trade is headed for everyone else?